Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. All right, guys, we're back, and I'm joined by Laura Fluke from the Quiet Room, and great guest, and so nice to see you. You got a lot to tell us, my friend. Hi, Laura.
Good morning, sunshine. It's so good to see you.
Same
and
here.
Time with you.
Now, there was a special occasion this past weekend. Tell me how you're feeling and what happened.
Well, I turned 57 on Saturday, and I just had a really, really wonderful day. I had a beautiful morning, got to work with a friend, and it's always fun to spend time in the working in the ethers and working with people, especially when they're remote sessions. It's always fun to see somebody walk away and feel much lighter and brighter. So that was the morning. And then I spent a good part of my day baking and cooking and all kinds of stuff. I made homemade chili and homemade bread and a special quinoa salad and more strudel, of course.
There we go. I knew we were going to get to that somehow.
Yeah.
Was it as good as that place that makes that apple with the fresh apples over there by you? Was it as good?
Honey, when I go and make the strudel is the shizzle. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. All right. All right. Yeah. So she takes the strudel seriously.
I do. The strudel is a very major part of our life.
Is that a Croatian thing?
I think it's like lasagna. Many different cultures make all sorts of different recipes, right? So everybody has their recipe, but I think like Germans make strudel and they use more of a pie dough kind of thing.
Where'd you learn it from?
My grandmother, my Croatian grandma, and we use phyllo dough. So there's a very simple, basic recipe. It's phyllo dough, butter.
Is it like a wonton?
Very,
a puff pastry.
Similar. Yeah, similar, very, very similar. Like when you get baklava.
Okay.
That's phyllo dough. If you see that real thin sheet type of stuff, that's
what that is.
Yeah, that's phyllo dough. So yeah, and I do make the baklava as well. So it's some good cooking up in this house.
Okay, I bet. And to work off some of that strudel, did you do some Croatian dancing, which I find real interesting because you're into it?
I know this weekend I did not. They were actually in Las Vegas performing at a special event and everything like that. So I was a little too soon to get on board with that one. But
didn't the head guy just see you up there once and just say, "Hey, I need somebody to do this"? Just one time he saw you and it's like, I need you on the team to go out to Vegas or something.
Well, it was, we were running through the practice, the session, the dance last weekend. So about 10 days ago, and I hadn't danced in probably 20 some odd years. I'd gone for small little events and, community events and maybe danced, after we ate dinner or something like that. But no, I'll have to be honest with you. I think we were all a little floored that after, 20 years that my legs knew pretty much what to do. And he's also a good instructor as well. So it wasn't hard to learn from what he was doing, but I think part of it was just being part of it. And, when my body and my mind gets part of that stuff, it's exciting.
I thought it was awesome that, you haven't done it in a while, but you had that, just as soon as you got back on there, just a couple of minutes and you were right back in it. Like your body is so amazing that it just remembers.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? I'm floored by how that happens.
I am too, because I think that, what do they say? If you fall off a bike, you never learn or never forget how to ride a bike. I think it's just one of those things where it becomes part of your muscle memory and just automatic. And and it was kind of cute because I had a different situation that was kind of similar with showing me like, wow, I didn't know I had that body memory in there either, the muscle memory. We had, obviously here in Michigan, all the leaves are falling, and I love to go to Stony Creek, which is a local park right here. And so they must have taken this big, probably like a tractor type thing, but it has a blower on it. So they moved all of the leaves, toward the edge of the woods and everything like that. So all of my typical trails were not open to go and walk on because they were all covered by all of the leaves, which was all right. So wanted to get down by the water, and you have to go down this little hill, but on this little hill, there's multiple oak trees. And so not only was the
Wow.
ground covered with leaves, but then now you have all these cotton picking acorns and everything like that on it. So I'm thinking, I do not need to be falling on my tushy.
Right, right.
So, so here I am walking, and I'm using a way of moving that when you're in martial arts, they how to advance forward. They teach you to kind of come in slowly to the other foot and then move forward. So it was this kind of glide sort of thing. And as I'm walking down this hill, very intentionally and safely, so I didn't fall, but it was the same sort of muscle memory from a specific martial arts stance or movement. And I'm thinking, man, I haven't done that in 30 years. So it was just, it really is one of those examples of muscle memory and what we do and why we do something that becomes automatic, which in a way, that that automatic nature, that muscle memory of things kind of also can carry over into like our mental health or emotional health and things like that. Well, why are you doing this? Well, it's just the way we've always done it. You
Right.
know what I mean? So those types of things. So
But could it
yeah,
could it also work for the negative too? Like if you in a situation and sometimes you choose a coping mechanism which is not going to be good for you, in the long term, but it's how you respond to such stresses
yeah,
and stuff like that.
yeah.
Can
I
that
think
happen too?
that, right. I think that's a great way of looking at it as well, because I mean, and then, I was looking at an article. It had somebody, I posted something on Facebook about anxiety attacks, and that they don't always look like this specific way or whatever the post was. And a friend had asked, she says, what's the difference between a panic attack and an anxiety attack?
I would love to know that.
And I was actually like, wow, I didn't like, yeah, there should be a difference. But so when I looked it up a little bit more, I realized that anxiety is something that kind of, it's a concern. It's kind of a chronic and a slow moving kind of thing that comes up. Something's coming up, an event or whatever. Just we'll just use an event. Say you have to go somewhere and you have to do something, you feel nervous about it, and so those few days ahead of time, you're building up, your anxiety builds up.
Wow.
What happens if? And some of that stuff it seems to be rooted more in, where are you in your brain? Are you secure within your brain, secure within yourself? And that anxiety comes when we're uncertain. A lot of times we're worried about something like that.
Right, right.
Whereas
It's looming kind of. It's
it
like over you.
is,
There's
yeah.
sort of Damocles.
Exactly. It's just kind of there, and it's there, and it's impeding things. Panic attacks, though, what I found was actually something that occurs pretty abruptly. It's, you have no idea where it's coming from. It just happens. And I've had that happen to myself one time or two times maybe, but I think that it was an interesting perspective of that panic attacks are something that are abrupt,
Yeah,
and
that's a great way
anxiety.
to explain it. And what
Mhm.
happened to you when you had the panic attack? What did you feel?
Me back in the day, gosh, this was many, many years ago, but I had a hard time breathing. I
Okay.
had chest pain. I felt worried. There was a moment where I thought, just a few minutes, like I thought I'm gonna die. Like,
Right.
what's going on here? And it was just
Scary.
so yeah, very, very overwhelming. And thank God I've not had something like that since.
So it just
But
happened at once?
it, I really think I can only say I really had one,
But
maybe two, if I really try to think about it. But no, I mean,
uh,
anxiety, that becomes kind of garden variety. We have,
right.
concerns about this, concerns about that. And
Well, Laura, what did you do when you had the panic attack? Excuse me, did you use what you know with breathing? Excuse me.
actually, no, this was,
Oh,
God,
before you had all the training.
all the training. I mean, way before this.
Oh,
And, I would say that it probably, I mean, I was on the phone with somebody and she was able to, talk me through, and we were kind of able to kind of go, okay, this is a tree. Do you see the tree? Yes. What does the tree look like? So you could get some sort of sense of being present in the moment and trying to find your feet and everything like that. And that is actually, when I was looking at, what are some of the treatments for anxiety, really does kind of hinge toward or kind of blend in with a lot of what we're doing. And that's, for anxiety, panic attacks are something that's a little bit bigger. That's a lot more mental health something, right?
mm,
Behavioral health. Whereas anxiety, we can work with those symptoms of anxiety, such as, am I worried about what's coming? And how do I sit with that? And is this, we've talked about this before, is what I'm experiencing in this moment, is it based on an experience that I'm having currently, or based on a previous experience which is causing me concern, like going, okay, if it went wonky over here in this scenario, what's the probability of it going wonky in this scenario?
Right, right.
So, this is where, like in the psychiatric world, you'll hear, what is it? Cognitive behavioral therapy. So cognitive is your mind,
Uh-huh.
and behavioral is, so to me, the way that, as a non-mental health person, I would perceive that as being mindfulness. I'm aware of my behavior, I'm aware of what I'm thinking, and I'm sitting with it and kind of piecing it together, kind of going, is this going on right now? No. Okay. When did it happen last? Okay, here. What did I do and what worked? This did not, or that did. And some of the additional things that they suggest for, our anxiety symptoms are breathing, being mindful of what you're thinking and what you're aware of, and that kind of thing. And, where craniosacral therapy, and that light touch therapy, or even energetic connection through a remote visit, something like that. A lot of times for me, and I've often said this, that when I'm getting wired and I don't know what's going on even within my own self, I'll be in that space of going, oh my God, I just wish I could have a hug. I wish somebody could hold my hand, something, just not be me. And I'm finding that, a lot of times in session, or in, different people's, their own life and their life events that are unfolding, it's just, I think anxiety happens when we're just so wired, we don't know what to do with it and where to go and what to do with all that excess energy that's just looping in our head. So, for me, this is where, sessions or conversations, what have you, are so helpful, because it's a not me kind of scenario, going, okay,
Yeah.
well, what are you seeing? Am I thinking correctly, but am I being dysregulated emotionally or in my nervous system? So that's why, when we connect with the body and we are able to tell if the body is, you know, highly activated or charged or something like that, we have that opportunity to calm it down,
Yeah.
you know,
Uh,
and
Do
go ahead.
you work with some people that have the anxiety, not the panic attacks? Or I mean, I could ask you if it's a shot in the dark, but during a session, did anyone ever have a panic attack? Because if you're
Yeah,
gonna have one in the session we do is probably the place to have it if you're gonna.
well, yes. I mean, I would say I've never been around anybody. None of my clients have ever had, anxiety attacks, but you can, I can think of one gentleman that came in maybe about a month ago, and he was just a nervous person. He had a family member, I guess his grandmother picked up on it, and the grandma tells the mother, "You're going to have to keep that boy grounded." And she went on to tell the man this, and I mean, here he is, 29 years old, and he comes in for me, and you could just see he held himself in a very anxious person posture. I don't know how to describe that, but you could just see he didn't feel real comfortable. And it wasn't that he was darting about or anything like that. He just didn't look comfortable and relaxed and
You picked up
settled.
on his energy that was just all over the
Yeah,
place.
yeah. And I mean, and even some of the things that he told me, and here I am sitting here thinking, this is when we don't really realize what our words can do to someone, because here his parents, said, oh, you're going to have to keep him grounded. So does his body kind of go, oh, well, do I have to be anxious? So, I'm set up for anxiety. It's a weird sort of way of looking at it, but the
Yeah,
body wasn't calm because somebody just said, oh, you're going to have to be grounded all the time.
right.
So
So it got in his head. He heard it, right?
yeah, he heard it, his body heard it. So then, how you're saying, do we act out of instinct?
Yeah.
He didn't learn anxious patterns per se from his family. Maybe he could have, because that's the way that the mom or the father, whatever, we a lot of our coping mechanisms are handed down, sort of.
Or
You
what
know,
we see, right?
Right. We do what we see, we learn what we see, kind of thing. And if we have, people around us that are not doing it in the most healthy way, not because they are wanting to be, poor parents or whatever,
Right.
ever, it may just be something that came down the line. This is the way the grandma dealt with anxiety. This is the way the mom's gonna, and then now here's the kid. So, here by the time we got done with the session, he had also had a secondary concern. He had a family member share with him that the family member was homosexual.
Okay.
And like, okay, go do you. I still love you. I don't think anything twice about
Right.
this. You do you. If you're happy with wherever you are, then be you. But it also created a sense of concern or questioning or seeking insight within, of going, he was asking himself, well, am I?
Oh.
And it wasn't, you could see it wasn't like he overcompensated or anything like that, but it was something that he revealed after the session, going, wow, I didn't realize I was feeling like that. He had connected with the 15-year-old part of himself that had heard this family member tell him this.
Hmm.
And ever since 15, he's been questioning, well, am I also gay? And not having a sense of settledness to that. So we were, it wasn't like he walked in going, hey, I want to know if I'm gay or not.
Right.
He
Right.
just was feeling anxious, and he was just tired of feeling anxious.
Yeah.
So, we went through that session, and when he came back out into the family room, he was sitting differently. I don't know how to tell you this, but he had a more manly posture. It wasn't that he just looked steadier. He looked more in his, please don't, I don't know how to say this, but he looked more in his man body. He
Yeah.
just,
Yeah. I got you.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he was owning the fact that, no, I'm a man, and nope, I'm not that way.
Right.
Uh-uh. Like, he knew however he got that answer within our session. It was connecting to that other part of himself where he was able to welcome himself back into his own being. There's just times when life happens and we just kind of take off mentally.
Yeah.
And this was one of those times for him where I asked him, I says, well, when you connect with your 15-year-old, is there something that your now 29-year-old would like for your 15-year-old part of you to know or to be aware of, or anything like that? And, to be honest, I can't recall what he may have said, or he was actually, now that I remember, he was actually kind of just in his very subconscious. He wasn't sleeping, but he wasn't talking much either. And in a session, you can kind of, yeah, no, he's off, let him go do his thing. But I would ask questions going, are you able to connect with your 15-year-old? And, he would nod accordingly. And there was that connection of going, wow. And I think he had even commented after the session, that he felt like he was able to connect with a 15-year-old and a 3-year-old, 3 or a 5-year-old version of him also,
Wow.
and
What was that
welcome
like?
these. I can't remember the 3 or the 5-year-old one. I don't remember that scenario, but the fact that he was able to find that we came across 2 scenarios in his life where a little aspect of him just kind of left and said, yeah, peace out, I'm out, because this is too weird for me, or whatever it is. So we were able to go and find those parts that were creating dysfunction for him, or
Hmm.
dis-ease in his ability to kind of walk through life. And when we connected, he felt more whole by having that 3 or 5-year-old, that single digit person, come in, and then that 15-year-old that he welcomed in. And you could see, we could just sense that he felt more him.
Any more clarification on who he was?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is where, a lot of times, somebody coming in for one thing, we think that it may be foot pain. We've talked about that. One lady thought it was foot pain, but really it was a disagreement with her sister that
Yep.
she didn't know how to resolve. So, we have that time and that space within a session to really sink in and kind of inquire, is this really a foot pain? Is this really a shoulder pain? Are you really anxious about this, scenario that's coming up, or is it rooted in something that was previous? So we can, sit with that and dialogue with those things. So, yeah.
Gotcha. And the next time, the next session, well, I guess I was wondering, do you tape your sessions or
I've
take
never
notes?
taped them. No, and I mean, I could, with somebody, because I know that I tape some of my personal sessions when I receive things because
Is that
there
a
are
good learning tool
things.
to look back on it, or
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, but I've never had anybody request, and
okay?
if somebody wanted it, I would certainly do that because and there have been times where I was grateful that I recorded a session because there may have been something that I said or that we talked about that I had no idea was there, and you want to go back and get that piece of wisdom,
Yeah, yeah.
so.
Is that where some of the learning comes from, where you're able to reflect on it after the session's over?
Well, I think once a session is done, we'll often say, hey, be aware for the next 24, 36 hours, you're kind of in an open position. You're not where, all kinds of weird stuff's going to happen. But your body kind of processes, has that same, day and a half-ish or so of time where it's really kind of active and processing what you just heard, what you just learned. And it really is an opportunity for a person to integrate what did they just learn, or did they, now, for him, he's going to go and integrate the fact that, he's going to go and talk to his dad and have a different conversation with his dad because he's always been wanting able to say, hey, dad, I accept you. I love you.
Yeah,
So he reached out a couple days later, said, wow, I really still feel so good. And,
nice.
so it really is a lot of, really encourage people, please walk away with what we did in the session and integrate it somehow. See how it applies for you in your everyday life. Or, maybe it isn't something that's really particularly noticeable, but you feel lighter, you feel different. And, I had one lady who came in here, she just got tired of drinking. She goes, I'm just tired of it. I've been drinking all my life. I know it's not the way to be doing things. I'm just tired of drinking being my thing.
Yeah.
Like, okay. So ran through a session. She had been on the table probably maybe two or three other times, but for whatever reason, today was a day for her.
Oh wow.
She ended up having what, some people call a Kundalini awakening. And that's where, how do I synopsize that? A Kundalini awakening is a much more powerful spiritual awakening, and this awareness to there's things going on bigger and deeper and broader than we know.
Is it almost like a hallucination?
No, I
No,
wouldn't
it's
say
not.
that
Okay,
it's.
I'm mixing it up with something then.
Yeah, no.
Is that a type of yoga?
Kundalini yoga, yes, but there's like a Kundalini awakening is a lot, loosely, very very loosely put, would be like an activation of all your chakras and your awareness of.
Like a breakthrough type thing?
Yeah, somebody, I had a come to Jesus moment. You could hear
Oh,
religious
okay.
experience, somebody said, I had a religious experience,
Got it.
different words, different culture.
Okay, I understand.
So, but for her, that was one of those sessions that, boy, that would have been really cool to record that one.
Yeah.
But, when she left from there, she just looked like all of the, I don't want to say the darkness, but all the spaces in life that felt they were, I mean, if you look on my lights above me, I've got one or two light bulbs that are out, you know what I mean? So she just felt like things were a little dim or off, right?
Uh-huh.
So after the session, she's like, wow, I feel so much better. I know this is going to change something. I didn't like, I don't know what's going to change for you. You're going to do your life and we'll see. Right. And I've offered to people, you'll know what's different by what's different.
Yeah, yeah.
So she engaged with life. And the next day there was something that happened that in it, 2 days prior, she would have reached for the bottle. She said, I had this argument with this family member. She goes, I didn't even think about it.
Wow.
Didn't plan on it. She has not drank since that visit.
Wow. It's like she get rewired
Oh,
somehow.
yeah. So for her, that session for her, I mean, they're not all like that,
Right.
but
That's
for her,
amazing.
it was, I'm done with the alcohol. I don't need it anymore. I want to,
Wow.
my way of, coping or refreshing my life or finding peace is she's outside all the time,
Good for her. Ah, I mean that's an amazing story. Hey, Laura Fluke, always a pleasure. Love picking your brain and hearing about your work and everything else. Let me give you the last word here. Anything you want to leave us with? Wow, that last story. That's a great one. That's something you don't hear. That's sort of her whole life. She was doing something, and in one session, she goes, "I'm done with this." If that's not proof that this is an effective.
It is. It
Outing.
really is very powerful. It's very impactful for the person. And it can be. And, we've talked about, does it work for everybody? Do you have to believe in it? If you're in a space of wanting to be open and see change created in your life, if you're ready, you're ready.
Yeah.
And it comes in and it changes for people when they're ready. And a lot of us get sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
So those are the type of people that something changes, something always changes in a session. But I think when a person is just like, okay, please, I am so dry, I'm so parched, I just need something different to refresh me. This a lot of times has been that vehicle for them. And I have people come to me when they're making major decisions. I have people who are coming to me for something mundane and everyday. They come for, maintenance. I just want to feel like I'm at peace and rolling with everything that comes as it comes.
Yeah.
So, we all deal with some level of anxiety, at some point. We're just human. I think that's part of the human condition. Each of us have different levels thereof.
Got it.
And how we maintain it or assist it. You know what I mean? So, like I said, breathing, being aware of your thoughts, going, when we're in that anxious state, going, is this really unfolding this way?
Yeah. Laura, we're going to have to pick this up next time because we're out of time. But how do people get a hold of you?
Quietroom808.com. And then my phone number is 586-322-9727. And again, I'd mentioned last week that we're, doing a rebranding and name change and all of that stuff, but everything that we're doing here will all be able to be filtered through to, the next step with that stuff. But yeah, by all means, I would love to hear from people and yeah, it's always exciting to share how our bodies and our minds work and how we can help them, how we can influence how our body is and maybe not even use medication, hopefully, for some people,
Perfect. Laura Fluke, thank you very much. And we will be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.